And so a lot of the things I learned were things I had to teach myself through books, resources like this, clinics, DVDs, blogs, whatever. And my first goal as a coach in those first 2 or first year was to try and understand as best I could every fundamental there was in the game. So that if a player came to me and said, "Coach, could you help me improve on this?" I would be able to help that player. Break it down or build it up. And as you all know, when you start to try and learn about shooting technique and developing shooters, there's too much information to even decipher. There's books dedicated to it, DVDs, clinic talks. There's so much information when it comes to shooting that it can get contradictory. We all know that. And so you have to sort that out yourself. But there was a ton of information as a young coach. When it came to dribbling, there were mixtape moves, there were individual trainers sharing their progressions, ways to exploit the carry dribble, the travel violation. There's been a great renaissance in dribbling technique as well. And you just continue down the post play, triple threat moves, finishing, dribbling, everything I could imagine. There was so much resources. And then a 4th grader named Dylan came up to me after practice and said, "Coach, could you help me improve my defense?" And I was a little taken aback. And when I thought for a second, all I could imagine were zigzag drills and maybe some team drills. And so I went back and I looked through all my resources, and I was right. The 1,000 pages of coaching books I had read to start my journey, I looked back, only 11 of those 1,000 pages talked, even referenced individual defense. That's 1%. To me, individual defense was a lot more than 1% of our game. And what annoyed me the most was that those pages, the blogs I looked up, the things I heard, was that defense was a choice. Players had to choose to be good defenders. It was all about effort. They needed a dog inside them. It was all about heart. 90% of defense is effort, 10% is heart. And listen, I'm not here to diminish that. I'm not. But to tell a 4th grader who came up to me and asked me, "Coach, can you help me improve on defense?" And if what I said back to him was, "Oh, kid, you just need to try harder," I would feel like I was robbing him of development. I would feel like I'm not doing my job. And so that led me on a 10-year journey, standing here in front of you, where I broke down the best defenders, tried to figure out, is there anything these great defenders are doing? The techniques, the footwork, the concepts, and most importantly, did those things overlap? Were there things that the great defenders were doing differently than the bad defenders? And what I can tell you after 10 years is, yes, definitively yes. There are things great defenders do that separate them. And a lot of them counter everything I had learned about defense to that point. Never cross your feet, never bring your feet together. This is what a defensive stance looks like. All those things, when I was watching, were being challenged. And although I can't show you clips today, sometimes I do virtual clinics where I'm able to show you the actual examples, so you don't have to be like, "No, that won't work. You can't cross your feet." Every great defender I've ever watched crosses their feet. And I'll show you a little bit of what the difference when bad defenders do it versus good. But if you want any of those videos to show to your players or maybe just show to yourself, I am more than willing to share that stuff with you. All right? And I'll tell you 2 ways you can get in contact with me at the end. But I want to get started. And as we get started, you'll notice that a bulk of the drills will be focused on the perimeter. To me, the game is trending more and more towards the perimeter. Offensive coaches are always talking about space and pace. They're always talking about creating that first advantage, then creating dominoes and making them build into bigger and bigger advantages. So to me, and we'll see it in the NBA right now at the highest level, the Defensive Player of the Year award used to always go to just the rim protecting player who got a bunch of blocks. Those players are still important. But we've seen in the NBA guys like Draymond Green, undersized, Kawhi Leonard, a wing, Marcus Smart, a guard. Those players are winning the award now. And what we're seeing is those big guys are being played off the court, and it's really the perimeter defenders that can anchor a defense. So the next generation of lockdown defenders are going to be those players who can survive in pace and space, who can survive in scrambles. When those dominoes start falling, who's your defender that can close out from a big closeout, right, a two-step closeout, and take away that next advantage from building? To contain the ball, to contest the shot, and now reset our defense towards the end of the shot clock. Those are the next defenders, right? And as coaches, we spend a lot of time on our shell drill and our team defensive schemes. But if I told you you ran a great play, you got a wide open shot for your shooter and they missed it, what would you do? You would work on your player's shooting ability. You wouldn't say that play stinks. And so we can constantly put defenders in the right spots, and we always yell at the help person or the scheme or the coverage. But we need to start training the individual defender too. Because the better our individual defenders can be, the less we have to worry about those scrambles and rotations. All right, so let's get started. Let me have one girl out here. Don't be shy. All right, give her a round of applause. Yeah, there we go. Here, stand right here. What I'm going to do in this clinic is go very linear. Not to say that my coaching is very linear. It's oftentimes about diagnosing a problem and building up the solution. But right now we're going to build up just so you can see how all the things fit together. And we're going to start with just the footwork patterns. And this first footwork pattern is one that we can all probably agree with. It's the Patrick Beverley version. It's the touch slide is what I call it. And basically I use a two-rung ladder, but I know coaches don't have those. Right? Not every coach has them. You can use lines on the court. A lot of the courts I've been seeing in Australia have pickleball courts and volleyball lines. So just find lines that are similar distance. And so the first slide technique is just having one foot in the rung, other foot outside, and we're going to slide through the ladder, putting one foot in each rung and slide back. And what we want to avoid at all times is 2 feet getting in the same ladder. Does that make sense? And what a lot of players mess up on is moving backwards. They'll move this foot first and get in the ladder. You want to give it a shot? Go as slow as you need to. Get in a little defensive stance. Good. Good. One more time. Yeah, yeah. Good. Give her a round of applause. If you don't mind, you're going to put this resistance band on your waist now and just hold it right there. And you'll see a lot of these drills I'm about to show you won't make you famous on Instagram or TikTok. They're going to be very focused about developing players. And we're going to build some more advanced stuff, but it's like not going to start advanced. So if you wanted to get stronger in the weight room, what would you do? Build muscle. You would lift weights. So how do we improve agility and explosiveness and quickness? We use resistance bands. So we're going to start with the same technique. Once the player has been comfortable and learned that movement pattern, now she can add a little resistance and go through the same thing. Good. And now we're challenging, go ahead, keep going, her explosiveness, her agility, and her force absorption. Good, freeze. Good job. Give her a round of applause again. She's making it look easy, okay? A lot of your players won't make it look easy. All right, I've done this. Camps in the US, camps here, all over. Some players pick it up just like her. Other players, you'll see a lot more deficiency in their movement and their brain wiring. It'll be tricky, but it will all come with time. Let's talk about the resistance bands for a second. I prefer the waist resistance band for a couple reasons. Number one, it keeps the resistance as she's moving away. Go ahead, try again. And just freeze away. Good. Freeze. So now she's just worked against the I'll lighten it up. She just worked against the resistance. So she's working on building force, right? Applying force, building generation of explosiveness. When she comes back, now this isn't a resistance band. it's an accelerator. Hold that for a second. And you can also use ankle or knee resistance bands, and those would be great. And you might be thinking, well, you get resistance training in both directions if you do it that way. And that's true. If only your goal is to build those muscles, that will be perfect. I like the accelerator phase because it forces her to go faster than she normally would, right? It's pulling her back. And so now it's challenging her footwork speed and her mind-body relationship, which is a big part of defense, especially when we talk about movement. Some of the issues I see with players is their force isn't always generated from the balls of their feet. Bad defenders will throw their leg out and break with the outside of their foot. Good defenders have the force generated in here. And when they lift up this foot, it's not that they're throwing it, it's that this foot is supplying the force. So that as soon as I lift this up, this is pushing me. Both are pushing right now, and as soon as I lift the foot over, I'm moving. A lot of bad defenders rely on the reach and run and step. Do this with your players. Ask your worst defender, where do they get blisters on their feet? And what you'll find, those bad, and hopefully they're getting blisters, so we're working hard. But you'll find that they get blisters on the outside of their foot. The good defenders you coach, I guarantee you, they get blisters on the inside because that's where all their force is. They're not breaking all the time. Another thing is you got players on their heels, especially in some of the drills we're going to progress to. When you're on your heels as a defender, you can't generate force. The heels I use for breaking. I got to stay on the balls of my feet even when I'm retreating. And so to fix that problem, one of the ways we do that in individual training like this is we'll take the resistance band and move it behind her. What does this do? Well, now you can see she has to stay on the balls of her feet because if she goes on the heels, she's going to be pulled back, right? Or if she gets too far out of her center of body because she's breaking with the outside, she'll get off balance and fall back again. So go ahead, try through the movement. Good, well done, well done. So that's just some simple ways, and I know not everyone's gonna have access to resistance bands or space like this, and I'm not saying we do this every single day. I'm saying in the preseason, 100%. We'll spend 5 to 7 minutes of our practice dedicated to a defensive rotation segment where guys are rotating between offensive, defensive stuff, and they'll work on their footwork in the preseason. We'll incorporate it into our dynamic stretch routine, usually without resistance bands. We'll just work on the footwork, and we'll add some other things. One example I can give you is if you don't have resistance band, you need to challenge the force generation. And so you can use that with counter movements, right? Where now they have to absorb their counter movement and produce force the other way. That would build strength and explosiveness. The other thing is you can test their distance, right? So I'll have all my players stand on the baseline after they dynamic stretch, and they'll try and cover as much ground as they can with their slides, right? 1, 2, 3, and then they'll all close out to the line, and then they'll continue going back, and then we'll get into our other defensive warm-up. So we train this early on, just like you would train shooting early on, so that during the season your players are capable of making shots, so that during the season our players are capable of exploding and have the athleticism to be a great defender. But as the season wears on and our practice time has different demands, now it's just a part of our warm-up. It's like daily vitamins, just practicing those footworks, practicing other things like that. All right, so one other of my favorite drills when it comes to this technique here is instead of the resistance band, I'll have a weight in our players' hands, probably 5 to 10 pounds. They'll go through the movement and punch it, okay? And then what that does is it's working on the force absorption because usually offensive players won't just attack one way, right? They'll change directions. So how do our players do that? Defensively, if I have a great first slide, but then I can't absorb that, right? Like a car going 0 to 60, we would love that, right? We love to be floored. but then not being able to go to 60 to 0, that's dangerous. Same thing with a player. She might develop explosiveness in a direction, but then the player counters. If she can't absorb that force, she's going to collapse and not have the ability to respond. So that's why I do things like ice skaters. That's why I do things with the weights to force their absorption. I'm getting a little winded myself. So I'm not going to spend too much time going over these drills. I have a whole book dedicated to them called Lockdown Program. If you want to learn more about like these individualized skills, the last thing I'll touch on is what I call a cushion slide. Defense is not only lateral, it's north and south. We know that. Offense is that way. So I'm going to move the band behind her, and she's going to perform a lateral slide. We can actually get rid of the ladder. You're going to perform a lateral slide moving backwards, but not opening your hips, making sure we're facing the camera at all times. Okay, ready? Let's try it. Okay, let's do it. Go back to the center, and let's do 2 quick slides to the left, moving backwards. Okay, good. Let's go back. Let's go other way, other direction. Okay, good. And then I would change the resistance to in front of her, because what did we just work on there? We worked on the acceleration of the technique, making it easy for her, making it recognizable what it should feel like. Now we add resistance and work on her force. Okay, coming back. One more. Good. You can take that off. Give her a round of applause. Okay, I'm going to have you have a partner come out and join you at the foul line, okay? Those are just some of the footwork stuff that I like to break down. Just like you would break down shooting or ball handling, you would rep out the crossover before you tell them to cross someone over. You would have them shoot in close before you shoot that 3, things like that. The next phase we're going to advance to is more live drills with a partner so that we can build the reaction time and the stimulus reading of an opponent. Because obviously if we spent all practice doing this, we would have super athletes, but we wouldn't have great defenders. Great defenders are built with both of them in mind. The first phase that we go through, the 3 drills we progress to, are going to be designed for a player who struggles on defense to build them into a player that's capable, a liable player to capable. A lot of times we coach players who are really liable, and all we need is for them to be average. And this is what these next drills are focused on. The first one is very simple. It's a mirror drill. So one player stands on one side of the line, the other player stands on the other, facing each other. This will be your mirror. We usually go about the foul line distance away. And you could have your whole team doing this. Any line is imaginable. You can have cones be the barrier, or maybe you just have lines that intersect properly, right? This black line and this white line. Anything could be a mirror. We would have every group going. It would be for 30 seconds for us. Your shot clock's 24. Maybe you want to do it for 24. It's a very tiring drill. So for beginners, I would recommend starting at 20 seconds or maybe 15. So the drill is this. One player is going to be on offense. All your goal is to move on this side of your mirror, juke her out, do whatever you got to do, spin, juke, whatever. Stay on your side of the mirror. Her job is very simple. Stay in front. Let me be you. As she tries to juke me, I need to stay in front of her. If she jukes me so well, she gets out of my hips, she gets 1 point. Okay? Because we know as a defensive player, if the offense is able to get outside your hips, it's going to lead to a lot of bad things, which is what the next drill will progress to. So basically for 20 seconds, you're trying to get outside her hips, you're trying to keep her in. And what we would like to see if we've built this phase properly is the individual footwork we just worked on, the one-touch slide and some other slide techniques we didn't get to, like the crossover step or the 2-touch slide. We would like to see that applied here. Obviously, we didn't have that time with her, so we can just see how it goes here. Ready? 20 seconds. Go. Good. 1, 2, 3. Good, good. 4. Time. Good, good work. And then they would switch, right? And then she would have a chance. I love players who count out their own score. As the group's going, you want that. I want players who are competing, who want to win the drill. I hate when we do this drill and then the 20 seconds ends and they say, how many points did you get? Oh, I don't know. Like, do you want to win the drill? Like, competitive nature is crucial to development. So if you have to get your girls or guys to count their score so that this is a competitive drill, not just a repetitive one. We will add a ball. Yep. Okay. We'll add a ball, and I'll tell you one of my hesitations with adding a ball. Depending on your level, and even at the highest levels, sometimes the ball can be extremely limiting for the offensive player. Without the ball, she can do whatever her mind creates. She can spin, she can juke, she can shoulder fake, she can do crazy things, which is great for testing her ability to move laterally. The ball is important so that she learns how to anticipate and read a player with an actual ball. That's an important skill. Probably one of the most important. But a lot of players, especially at the youth level, they never practice moving laterally with the ball. It's a very hard skill. So sometimes adding a ball is very unchallenging for the defensive player. So you have to weigh those balances. It can be a great offensive drill if you want to teach lateral shiftiness, because that is important as we're seeing to north and south direction attacks. But let's just see how this goes. You comfortable doing it? Yeah? Okay. We'll go 10 seconds. Ready? Go! 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Good. Good job. High five. Good job. So that would be the mirror drill. That's a very important drill for teaching lateral quickness, but also anticipation, reaction, reading an opponent. Now we move it to the top. Now we start working on that cushion slide I demonstrated with her, where she's being pulled back. To me, the worst thing you can do as a defender is when she attacks, I open my hips. Some coaches, me as a player, we're taught the zigzag drill. I hate the zigzag drill. It teaches you drop step, slide, 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 drop step, slide, slide, slide. In my experience and from what I've seen, the drop step is one of the single most detrimental moves to a defense. Because as soon as I open my hip like this, she has a great driving line. And the only thing I can do is try and body her up to veer her away, and that's usually going to be a foul. And if we get into jab steps and I open up my hips, now she can attack my top foot, and I have to open up even more. So I very strongly dislike the drop step. Instead, I prefer the cushion slide, which is a technique not many players have ever experienced. But it means I'm going to be able to laterally slide both square to the offensive player and in front. This is legal guarding position. This is what the refs want to see. Because if she comes full head of steam at me, go ahead, and I stay square to her, I can take that legal charge. Because I'm moving backwards and square, which is legal. Scottie Pippen, I call it a Pippen charge for our guys. He was great at it. They see probably too many clips of Scottie Pippen doing it throughout the season. That's because I love it. An on-ball charge, one of my favorite things in the game. This drill is called close the gate. She has to try and get through this gate right here or this gate right here. The defender has to close the gate. We start by limiting the offensive player very severely, probably too severely. But what would you do offensively when you're practicing a new dribble move? You would probably put a cone out and then advance to a live player. You start shooting near and work far out. We want to build on confidence on defense too, just like we build on confidence on offense. So we're going to start off with the offensive player not being able to do anything except for being a triple threat, and whenever she wants, attack one gate. She can't cross over, she can't jab. All she can do is be a statue and attack. Why? Because we're worried of the defensive player's development. And we want to make sure she has the technique and she's building on confidence. So you want to try this? Okay, freeze. We like to start within touching distance. This is a pretty good distance right here. She's going to attack either gate. You're going to try and cut it off. Ready? Okay, good. Freeze. Go back. You can take 2-3 dribbles. Try and get through that gate even if you feel contact. What I don't want you to focus on is really bodying her up the first dribble. Just beat her to that gate or that gate. Okay, ready? Here we go. Good, better, better, good. Let's do one more. Good, freeze, good. All right. So you'll be amazed, just like I was amazed when I first did this drill. The players really struggle with this. You're going to see this drill right now and be like, this is the simplest drill I've ever seen. How could any player not do this? You're going to see your players open up their hips constantly, especially when we add jab moves and a live dribble. It's going to happen over and over and over again. I don't like to over-coach in the beginning. I like them to experience the drill organically and develop solutions, which is that cushion slide. One point I will make to players is, again, not about bodying up the first dribble. It's about closing the gate. So it's really not your first slide. It's going to be your second or third that gets you to success. The other point I make is that you can never be on the heels of your feet, obviously. You can't generate any force like that. Even when you're backing up and having active feet, you got to stay on the balls of your feet. When we add a jab step, so now you're able to jab before you attack, right? A lot of players will overreact to a jab. Let me be you. And this is a teaching point I will make to them. So as she has a hard jab, players will do that one, right? Something like that. Either they open their hips, which we hate, or they'll overslide. What we want our players to do is take any quick movement from the offensive player with a retreat step. Just a retreat step. If she starts to attack, then I have that slide and that cushion already built in. If she doesn't decide to attack, she just jabs, now I'm still square to her. And if she jabs and crosses, I can still probably cut her off. So we really work on the retreat step. We really work on this idea of cushioning. That's the jab phase. That's level 2. Level 3 is we start with a live dribble, right? So she's able to dribble the ball before the three-point line, and she can do whatever she wants. She can get into her mixtape package, her dance moves, whatever. But when she decides to attack and crosses the three-point line, she's committed. We don't add counters yet. So what is she being able to work on? Recognizing a dribble attack. But most importantly, another teaching point during this phase is she should not just be a statue. She should not just be a sitting duck, right? As she dribbles, the defender should not just be waiting to be attacked. She should be active, stunting at the ball. Because what a lot of defenders learn as you dribble, if I give a hard stunt, what is she going to do? She's probably going to attack or counter. And so my hard stunt is followed by an immediate retreat, and usually I'm anticipating the cross, and I actually gain an advantage by stunting at the ball. I'm not just backing up. I'm active. I'm active. So don't let her just dribble the whole time. You want to try that one? Okay, let's see how it looks. Oh, freeze. You're going to start with a dribble. Just start dribbling. Okay, whenever you attack, you attack. Here we go. Stunt at her. Good. Good. Well done. Well done. Good. And then the last teaching point we make in this drill is scarecrowing. We show our hands to the official. Sometimes, yeah, you can get away with an arm bar, but a lot of times refs don't like physicality, especially in the US with freedom of movement. So when she attacks me, I want to catch it right on my chest, and I want to show my hands like a scarecrow in the field. That's what we tell our players. If your players are really struggling with this drill, I'll show you one warm-up drill we do that controls it even more. So let's start on the baseline. You can start in the middle. Middle baseline facing half. Good. Yep. You start on defense. And we'll have all our players lined up in 3 lines, partnered up. The first group will go. And if our players are struggling with this drill, we'll make it very controlled. So she's going to attack 2 hard dribbles and then come to a jump stop. We're really big on coming to 2 offensively, so there's synergy in what we do in these drills with the offensive focus too. But she's going to drive hard, come to 2, and this player is going to try and chest it, catch it in her chest and scarecrow it. She's going to go into her jab package, and then the coach will yell attack. She'll attack 2 to the left. She'll cut it off, attack again to the right. And on the third one, we take a charge. Okay? I don't know your feelings on charges. I love them. I already spoke on that. So the third one, we take a charge. And our whole team does it. It gives us a lot of energy to start when we're working on this. It's really controlled. Do we spend a lot of time on it? No. But if the players are struggling with the technique of cushioning, we make it as predictable as possible. Just show us the correct technique. Just learn it. Get the habit of it. Then we'll progress this drill just like we do every drill to make it a little live. So now she can take 2 dribbles in either direction. You don't know. But the same goal. You have to beat her to that spot and chest it. How we do this drill is it's great if she stays in front the whole time, but the only time that she can get off the drill is if she takes a legal charge. So she could go all the way to half court, have to do it again. But as soon as she catches the first one with her chest, whether it's the first one or the last one, she takes a charge, she's out of the drill, next person's going. So we really value charges. And we really value the ability to keep a player in front. So that's the mirror drill. That's close the gate. This is a Baylor drill, which I stole from the University of Baylor. And then the last thing we have will transition us into pressure. Before I transition into pressure, I'll tell a quick story and then ask if we have any questions. When the Spurs in 2012-13, when they were playing the Miami Heat, if we all can remember that series, it was very pivotal for me as a coach, the beautiful game. But defensively, the Heat were one of the quickest, most athletic teams. You had LeBron, Wade, Duncan lobs, fast breaks. And then you had the Spurs, one of the oldest teams, trying to guard them. And you go, how the hell did the Spurs guard that team? I heard one quote that opened my eyes. Greg Popovich, just keep backing up, guys. And we've never said that defensively until I heard Greg Popovich say it. Just keep backing up. Sometimes when you're versed an incredible offensive player, or you are a very poor defender who's liable, we can't give up layups. We can't give up low buys the whole game. If all you can do is cushion, just keep backing up, stay in front, never get beat, now you're always there to wall up at the rim or contest the pull-up, we would all agree those are players. If we could take our liable players to that point, we could play them more. So that's the first phase. Can we just get our players to stay in front? The cushion slide is a great example. Does anyone have any questions about the containment series? Yeah.
Do you see any difference between male and female athletes with containment and pressure?
So the more I work on it, I see a little bit more struggle from the female athletes in terms of creating that cushion. Not in terms of their their ability to laterally slide. They can both build explosiveness like that. A lot of the female players I've worked with, at least, whether it's youth or Division I athletes, they have a real struggle with opening their hips. I don't know what it is. Maybe it was their training previously. Maybe it was just the group I was working with, so I don't want to have a whole blanket statement. But that's the only difference I've seen, the ability to open their hips too much. Okay, pressure, one of my favorite things. If you have a great athlete on your team who's an okay defender, I promise you, you can get a lot more out of them. Okay? And as we take an average player to elite, we're going to need some of that skill and explosiveness we worked on, right? Because ultimately it's going to be both of these things coming together. But to build pressure, there are some important things. So we're going to start with pressure box. And again, this is a drill you can do all around the court with all your players at once. The offensive player is going to start right here facing that way. Don't worry about the basket, but you're going to be in this box, all right, the lane, the paint. She's going to be defending you for 30 seconds. And again, you can change the time based on your player's athleticism and endurance. She's going to be trying to supply in your shirt pressure for that whole time, 20 or 30 seconds. Let me be you. A lot of players who are on this development scale of defense are worried about pressuring the ball. They think if they pressure the ball, they're going to get beat more. But here's the simple truth sometimes. If I'm guarding her like this, which way can she attack me? Any way she imagines. She can step back, she can go right, left, whichever way. But the moment I apply pressure and get in her shirt, now I've actually made her more predictable. Now she can only attack me probably right here. And I know that. So I gain a little control of her. So as I start this drill and pressure, I know her first dribble, it's probably going to be here. So I beat her there. I almost anticipate it. And then when I stand her up like this, what do I know is going to happen? The retreat or the cross. And now as she crosses, I'm right there again. So sometimes pressuring a player can actually help the defender tremendously. We call it disruptive control. We don't have to be on our heels waiting to see what happens the whole time. We can be the attackers on defense too. This is one of my favorite drills, and when my players, after the season, I asked them what drills they remember most, they said this was the drill they hated the most. Okay, this was the drill that they always dreaded because it was so tiring, especially when you have guys that are competing against each other. So we're going to go just for 20 seconds right now. But again, she's going to score a point every time she creates more than an arm's length separation in that whole box. Okay? If she creates separation, she gets a point, so don't let her do that. For 20 seconds. Ready? Go! Keep on her, stay on her. Good, pressure her. Good, retreat, retreat. Good, pressure. Good, anticipate. Good. 5, 4, 3, 2, freeze. Good. Good. Give her a hand. That's hard drill. Good. I know you're probably like, I've never been to a coach's clinic where I've clapped more. I enjoy energy, right? These girls are working hard. We clap a lot in our gym, right? I'm giving a lot of high fives, a lot of enthusiasm. I just want to make these girls comfortable. So what you've seen there is maybe you're watching saying, wow, I would have called a lot of fouls. I am not that coach, okay? If you watch us in the preseason, you'll be like, wow, these guys foul a lot. I will never pull back the rope early in the season. I want players who are over-aggressive on defense. I think the hardest thing you can do is take a team that's afraid to foul and make them a physical team, okay? One of the easier things to do is take a too physical team and pull back the rope a little bit because you don't lose that physicality. And so, yeah, we would like to get to a point, especially with her, who's super athletic and moves her feet well, where she can now pressure and disrupt the player without using too much of an arm bar because she could get there no problem. But I never want to do that early. I never want to take the bark out of the dog early, okay? That's pressure box. It's a great offensive drill too. We would love players who can handle pressure, create separation, deliver passes to run our plays. Sometimes I'll walk around as they're doing this and just hold up fingers behind the box so the offensive player has to stay with their eyes open and head up. So it's an offense-defensive drill. But that's pressure box. We then progress it to a scoring game. So we start on the baseline again. Let's start on this white line. Now we're doing one-on-one lane line. She's trying to get to the top of the three-point line to put the ball down, okay? You have to stay within this lane. So you can cross over, get to the top of the three-point line to put the ball down. She is trying to cut her off. Create as many turns as we can. All right, so let's just go through it, 50%, walk through it, come all the way up. That'd be 1 turn, 2 turns, 3 turns, come all the way up here. Okay, maybe 4. She put the ball down. Okay, now she's immediately on defense, and she's immediately on offense. How many dribbles does she get? The same amount of dribbles that she just worked her butt off to get on defense. So she got 4 turns, so she gets 4 dribbles. If she got 0 turns, she would have 0 dribbles. So we want to start to embed in the mindset of a defender, the harder you work on defense, the more you get rewarded on offense. It's correlated. Great defensive teams get leak-outs, get transition scores. The same thing here. The harder you work on defense, the more we'll reward you on offense. And we know, as coaches, a lot of players want rewards on offense more so than on defense, right? So make them work for it. That's one-on-one lane line. Now we go to 12 seconds of hell. Maybe you say 12 seconds of torture if you're working with little kids. I don't know how it is over here. But let's start on the wing. It's great to have players who can pressure the ball and contain. But no matter what side of the extreme we're working on, we want players who can integrate into our team system and our team defense. And what I hate is players who guard the ball like this. Okay, it looks great. It looks like they're in a stance. It looks like they're focused. But what is she able to do? Get in a stance? She's able to look through the whole offense. She's able to hit a pinpoint pass to a person going back door, coming off a stagger screen. She's able to throw passes on time, on target. And so one of the biggest changes I made to my coaching this year, I always knew it was important, but I never doubled down on it like I did this year. And it really turned out very effective for us. We were top 10 in the country in defense and won our conference tournament. And I tell you, our scheme wasn't picture perfect every time. We would give up some back cuts by guys falling asleep in the gap like everyone does. We would blow some coverages and staggers and whatever. But so many times, we just came up with plays on the ball. And you ask my players what they saw in film sessions more than anything, besides opponent scouts, was players making plays on the ball. Not stealing the ball, getting deflections, yeah, but even just having enough pressure on this player where she might miss that opening, right? She might see the back door cut but have to pivot around. Now she throws it, now her help's there, right? Now the stagger cut, now, oh, it's wide open, but then she delivers it off target. So now the shooter has to grab it out here. Now she's not in their shooting rhythm. Now we're there, okay? So a lot of the times, defense isn't always spectacular. Oftentimes, it's the absence of spectacular that great defenders do. Preventing, the dunks and alley-oops, that's the absence of spectacular. That's great defense. So 12 seconds of hell, just building that habit. For 4 seconds, she's going to pivot hard, look for passes, pass fake, ball fake, pivot, and all you're going to do is trace the ball and heat it up. We use the word heat. You'll hear me say it more than anything probably, besides our low man. Heat, low man, that's probably what I say most of practice. But we're going to apply a lot of heat on the ball by having activity. This will look different for every player. Some players heat up the ball like this. Those are the players who are super agile, super good on the ball. Some players heat up the ball like this. They need a little more cushion to start. But regardless, they're doing something. They're not just being a statue. So for 12 seconds, you pivot hard. When she's a passer, when she's looking to pass, we pressure more. When she comes down below her hip, we back up more. But we're always active. Our feet are always moving. Our hands are always moving. You might decide what shoulder she shades towards based on your no middle, no baseline, things like that, no right. All right, that's for 4 seconds. I'll count it down and I'll yell dribble after 4 seconds. Now she's going to dribble in place, right? She's going to move and dribble. Same thing, you're going to stunt retreat, active. And then for the last 4 seconds, I'm going to yell dead. And you're going to come to 2. And we're going to pressure the hell out of her, okay? We're going to smother her. Because when someone picks up the ball against us, we know it's going to be a turnover pass, okay? So when she pick it up, we want to smother her fouling with our lower body, showing our hands to our refs, and we want to get her on her back foot because from here, she can't pivot anymore to find an escape. Whereas if she kept this foot here and we're dead, that's not enough. Get her on her back foot so all she can do is pray, okay? 4 seconds, 4 seconds, 4 seconds. Ready? Trace it. Here we go. 1, 2, 3. Dribble. Stunt, recover. Stunt, recover. Dead. Smother. Good. Freeze. Good offensive play, creating space, all right? Now we would have our whole team almost doing that along the three-point line. This is just a build-up drill into our team stuff, but we do this almost every day. 12 seconds of hell. They're getting after it. They're learning that the only way they can be on ball is if they're active. Okay, 12 seconds of hell. Some of the more nuanced things, which I don't want to spend too much time because I do want to get to some other stuff, especially when it comes to closing out. We'll go back to, let's say we're guarding someone attacking the rim. Whether we're beaten from a pressure defender or we're containing and now they're at the rim. How do we continue to make a play? We're not going to have shot blockers all the time or players who can just steal the ball like Iguodala when they go up to gather it. So let's come over here at the elbow. Offensive player facing the baseline and triple threat. Defensive player on the side of her. We work on walling up. This is a common phrase, one that we use a lot. Walling up means as she drives, we want to get between her and the basket. More specifically, we want to get her chest, our chest, the defender's chest, on her shoulder. Okay? We want to get it on her shoulder and our hands to the sky, behind the ears. We say behind the ears because we know that won't always happen. That's a little awkward to do. But we know at the very least we're trying to train that out, the TP. The TP is always going to be a foul, okay? When we're walling up, we want to show, Coach was just telling me, show your mitts, right? Show your mitts, but we're fouling with our lower body all the time because this is a battle of driving angle, okay? She's trying to get to the charge circle to make that layup. If she gets there, even if I'm walling up, she still has a great finish on me. She's where she wants to be. We hate soft walls. Soft walls don't supply contact. They're just there to look good. Or they're falling back to avoid a foul. We hate soft walls. We want to impact every player who gets in the paint or any player who wants to finish. So we are fouling with our lower body, trying to veer her outside the lane, and then showing legal guarding position with our chests and our hands, okay? We'll do this from this. If you'd like small-sided games and constraints, things like this, we do this a lot. We start on her hip, and now it's a race. She obviously can't recover in time to be square, so she's going to have to wall up. Another drill we do is one-on-one full court. Hopefully, a lot of people do that drill. That's the drill where you get a lot more turn and run, a lot more advanced footwork and stuff like that. But a lot of times that drill will organically end up in a wall-up situation. Because in a full court situation, there's a lot of recovery from the defender. And if that offensive player is just set on attacking, there's going to be many, many times where they have to make a play walling up at the rim. So we'll probably do one-on-one full court to work on walling up, as counterintuitive as that might be. Okay? Walling up, big skill. Other skills we work on are things that are a little more advanced. Things that we might add to the toolbox of great defenders. And things I won't cover now. They're on my YouTube page and things like that. But I bring that up just to make one point. When you have a great offensive player, or if you ask any great offensive player, what do they want to do? They want to add more tools to their bag. I don't know if that's a phrase here. It's a big phrase in America. We got a big bag. That's what offensive players like to say, right? Because they got a lot of tools to go to offensively. Defenders, no defender says, I got a big bag. I like to push defenders, especially great defenders. If I'm not working with a liable defender, I'm working with an above average defender, I need to add more tools to his box, right? Whether that's a chase down block technique, whether that's a run through technique, whether that's how to time a dribble. And if you want to ask any questions when we're a little later to touch on any of those, I can dive into them. But again, all those resources I just mentioned, they're free on my YouTube page, all those more advanced tactics. So don't just, you have a great defender, don't just let her continue to be great. Add more tools to her bag so that she can make those plays when the game depends on it. I've had that happen, right? I taught a player a run-through steal. He hardly ever did it the moment we needed it the most. Transition defense, last minute of the game, we're up 1, comes up with a big run-through steal. Changes the game, okay? Let's go into closeouts. Let's have 4 girls out here, 4 girls out here, and then there are 4 partners on the perimeter with a ball. So you can go on the wing with the ball. You can go right on the elbow. Blue can go on the corner. Let's have 2 sets. Defender right here on the lane line. Okay. Blue on the corner. We need another blue on the wing. Defense right here. Okay, give me 4 more girls right under here wearing the same color. Okay, doesn't have to be the same color, that's fine. Use 4 right there. Okay, let's get 2 right there, 2 over here. Okay, you're fine right here. We're gonna start with a team closeout drill that I love. It's a drill we do as well. I don't know if we can get it out of them right now, but it's a big energy building drill for us. And it's working on defensive technique in terms of a closeout. What's the most common skill on defense? It's probably a closeout. One player will guard the ball, everyone else will close out in order to guard their man. And if you can't close out, I don't care how good you are on ball, if you can't close out, you're getting shot on or driven by. Right? And so our ability to close out is probably the #1 skill. So, closing out, #1 key, have an early hand. Your hand should arrive before your feet break down. Nothing is worse than when I'm closing out a player, she goes up to shoot it, and then my hand comes up under her. And the guy stands there and goes, "Coach, I contested the shot." We watch it back in film, that person's up in their release, and that hand's just coming up. They had 0 impact on the ball. The biggest impact you're gonna have on the ball is when your hand is already up, okay? Your hand needs to be early and high. So we'll start this drill and we'll close out. Our hand's gotta arrive. Let's talk about feet. This has been a very popular debate in coaching circles. Do we chop our feet or do we run to stop? I'm here to say, it depends, okay? Anticlimactic, I know. So, if you ask a player, in my mind, to sprint to the foul line and back, or do a sprint, would we ever see a player do this, right? Sprint, boom. We would never see a player do that. They don't need to control their speed that much. We never ask an offensive player who's coming to the basket, come to 2 as fast as you can, right? I mean, we would pull our hair out. Or come to a pull-up, right? So we don't demand that on offense. We expect the player to go through full speed on 2. And yet when we talk about closeouts, we expect them to do 10 choppy steps. Okay, so I'm not for that. Choppy steps don't close space as much as we would like. Okay, it makes players constantly late to the ball. And the later you are to the ball, the more the ball has the advantage to shoot or drive. I also don't like the 1-2 stop. You see that a lot in the NBA. That would be sprinting out and then coming to a 1-2, usually right on her hip right here. The NBA does this obviously because 3-pointers are so efficient. and their defenses can live and die by if they even give up threes, let alone make them. So their focus is different than most of ours. My focus isn't always to eliminate threes, it's just to challenge them. So by closing out like that, we probably give up 2 severe driving lanes, and a lot of players need to come to 2 with a staggered. Okay, and so when that happens, we're also exposing our top foot, which is also bad, and we're already dropping our hips like we talked about earlier and close the gate. So you're like, well, you told us not to do the choppy set, you told us not to do this. What do you? So I'm a believer in the in between, and a lot of the things I believe are in the moderate end, especially when it comes to basketball. So we like a 4-step breakdown. We're not chopping our feet 10 times. We're just going 1, 2, 3, 4. We're guarding square with our ass to the glass, our butt to the glass. We don't like to add an angle because for a lot of players who can't pressure the ball, if I add an angle like this, let's say I want her to go right, she can also attack my top foot. The only way she can't attack my top foot is if I'm super tight, okay? And so we don't like to give up too big of an angle in our defense. We like to guard the shoulder. That's how we take away middle, because it gives us a step. We don't guard at an angle. Okay, let's get back to this drill. So we're all gonna slap the floor together on defense. So usually they'll self-organize as they come on and say, you're gonna lead us. So everyone's gonna follow her lead and slap the floor at the same time. So let's just go through it slowly. She slaps the floor, and then they all yell defense as they come up, and they start chopping their feet facing me. Okay, now these girls are obviously in front of a bunch of coaches, and I'm a new coach to them, and this is probably an uncomfortable environment. I don't like players who are too cool, right? Players don't like coaches who are too cool. So let's see if we can get it out of them. I don't care who's watching, no one cares, right? Slap the floor with some passion, yell defense, come up and chop your feet. I'll yell touch. You'll touch your partner right here. You'll touch your partner right here by giving them a hand slap. This is simulating a stunt and recover, okay? So we're slap, and then we are sprinting like our life depends on it to close out this 3-point shooter, getting an early hand, 3-step breakdown, and then we're tracing the ball for 4 seconds. I'll yell change. You guys will become the offense. The ball will be given. The offense will sprint off the court, and these 4 girls will sprint on like they want to start the game, slap the floor, yell defense, chop their feet, I'll yell touch, they'll sprint out. Okay, let's see how it goes, shall we? Girls, are you ready? Remember, you get no awards for being too cool. If anything, it's the opposite, right? It's the girls who are gonna yell defense and chop their feet and be in the gym like no one cares. Those are the girls who are gonna catch eyes from coaches who care about basketball. Okay, ready? Here we go, floor slap. Again, louder. Better, touch, sprint, hand. Trace, 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 change, next group, come on. Slap the floor, ready, go. Better, touch, hand. Good, change, good, freeze. Next group, get ready. Okay, good work, girls. So it's the little things, like again, we spend a lot of our time in practice guarding live stuff, but this stuff's the bedrock of it, I promise you. Bringing energy to the defensive end, having the players in sync. I mean, God forbid we try and teach them a ball screen coverage and they can't even slap the floor together. Like, what are we working with, guys, right? Like, so we care, they don't do it. Again, get off, next group, touch, close out. A lot of these girls, unfortunately, didn't put their hand up early, they put their hand up late, so that would be one thing we are working on improving. All right, but that's the basics of closeouts. We like to rep the technique before we add a live element to them. Some live element drills we'll use with closeouts are a lot of the drills I've already showed you. The mirror drill, the close the gate drill. We'll do that by adding a closeout to start the drill, right? So girls, stay on for a second. Can you just come to right here? facing the basket. I'll have the ball. Let's imagine it's just me and her, and we have everyone else on a line. I'll toss her the ball, I'll sprint the closeout, and then we'll go mirror drill. Okay? And we'll do a mirror drill with a closeout. We'll do close the gate with a closeout. And now they're working on closing out and containing with that cushion slide. And then if we want to add a live element to it, can you pass your ball to her? If we want to do one-on-ones, we'll just do something simple. We'll have players in the slot, lane line extended. They'll take a hard 2 dribbles. They'll come to 2 or whatever you teach, pass it out, and now we're playing live one-on-one with the passer being the defender. You have to get an early handout on this one because she's just going to shoot it. You have to close out like she's going to shoot it too because you've given up a lot of space in your closeout. So we get there early, we influence baseline for us, and we defend like that. So again, we want to build on success. We want to practice the technique and then build it to live where it's controlled a little bit more, and then we want to let them play a little bit more. Last thing I'll say about closeouts, all that stuff we just talked about, you can throw it all out if your players can beat the ball. We don't have to worry about what their foot technique is when they close out if they get there on the catch. Because, give me the ball. If she closes out and arrives on the catch, she doesn't have to guard the closeout. She just has to guard the ball now. She's beaten the ball. She's avoided the closeout. Doesn't care how she got there with her feet. She's already there. All right? So beating the ball is one of the most important skills for defenders. It's only going to be built through anticipation off the ball. And so one of the ways we preach that to our players is we do a drill in our shell drill called steal second. Okay? So if we had one ball, right, and we'll progress to shell, we would have a base. Sometimes if I have enough time before practice, I'll tape down a base about this long, right? Like a baseball base in the US. And we'll be passing it around in our shell drill. And anytime a player gets the base late, they're out. They get 1 out for their team. If the team gets 3 outs, they're off. New group comes on. We're seeing who gets the most passes by stealing second. We use the term steal second because for our players, it resonates well. US is a big baseball country, right? So every player, when we say steal second base, they know what that means in baseball. They see the player on first base leading off, ready to steal second base. And when the pitcher throws the ball to the catcher and this player takes off, they got to get to base before that catcher picks them off. So every player kind of triggers that in their head, that lead up, that shifty, reading the pitcher, taking off and beating the ball. For you guys, it might be a different phrase. Obviously, baseball's, I don't know what footy does or things like that. But coming up with a phrase like beat the ball or something else that resonates with our players is big. So we work on that in the shell drill. After this drill, I'll have the corners lose the ball. Corners lose the ball. And now we're doing 2-on-2 closeouts. So the same exact drill setup. They'll touch players. And they'll close out like it's 2-on-2 on their side. She's obviously going to close out to the ball because her player has it. She's going to take away shot. We always play the shot, but think the drive. Play the shot, think drive, because we never want to be surprised when they drive. We're always thinking drive. We're always getting ready to push backwards. But we got to play the shot first. This player, her person doesn't have the ball. So she's not closing out to give her a high five or a hug. She's closing out in the gap. Coaches, your gap is going to be different. Whether you're a denial team, whether you're a pack line open face, whether you're a shifted face in a shallower gap, I don't know exactly the teachings you're going to do for your players, but we'll sprint to the gap. Right now, let's just go shallow gap. So that's about here, splitting the difference. But your chest is to your offensive player, okay? Okay, so you'll be on that side too, okay? The players on offense will have about 3 dribbles before I say next, and all they're either doing is passing the ball, pass the ball, and what are we hoping that we see from our defenders is arriving on the catch. Not late. There's only one pass they can make. It should not surprise you. We never want a player, give it back to her, who's staring at the ball, and then the ball goes, she watches the flight path, right? Like she's at the airport watching the planes take off. Never watch as soon as you see that ball move, you've got to move to it. Don't worry about it landing in her hands. Don't watch the flight, right? Don't take pictures. Beat the ball. And then you're like a magnet. The ball is metal. As soon as that ball moves, it's pulling you to the gap. We never want to get face cut when this player decides to cut. The other thing the offense can do is take a hard dribble into the gap. If she does that, we are hoping the defender will have a great cushion slide to guard her yard, and then we're expecting a great stunt in the gap. Let's bring it over here. Bring it over here. I'm in the gap. We never want to stunt come into the lane, because this is going to take our momentum way away from our offensive player. So if we go back, and that usually happens if this player is beat or we're in a poor gap. If we're all the way back here or we're not close enough split. But if we're in a good gap and she does her job of guarding her yard, this ball is going to come a little wide. And as it does, I want to stunt up towards her like I'm about to steal it. And then as she dribbles, stunt and recover. We don't help off the strong side corner. I'll get in a little bit why based on our scheme, but so we never want to stunt and stay. We stunt hard as you can, because you want to force her, you want her to say, oh shit, oh shoot, she's going to pass. And as that's happening, the players will sometimes even the ball will just hit their hand. Not because they were thinking of stealing it, the offense just threw it to them because of their hard stunt and recover to take away the shooter. Okay, so girls, that's what we're going to do here. Same start of the drill, we're going to slap the floor. We're going to heat up the ball. We're going to have active gaps. Hopefully we're talking. I'm on your left. I'm in your gap. I'm on your right. Ready? Let's see how it looks. Let's start on her slap. Ready?
Defense.
Let's get everyone saying it. Here we go again. Defense. Chop, chop, touch. Close out to the gap. Talk to her. Pass or drive. Pass or drive it. Good. Offense. Good. Good. Next group. Go. Next group. Switch. Okay, freeze, okay. I won't harp too much on this drill. Obviously, we want players sprinting out, right? This gives us so much energy, this drill, and we do it for like minute, moving on. Offense, we need to have more solid ball protection, more hard grabs, create better passes. We can't have deflections with the defense not going 100% live. We'll progress this drill to 4-on-4 shell, so you'll get rid of your ball. And then we'll be in 4-on-4 shell. So I'll have the ball. The players will do exactly the same thing. Let's touch. Let's touch. Let's sprint the gaps. And right almost there. We won't talk too much about that. All right, a little higher gap. And then we'll just move the ball around, working on beating the ball and working on our positional stuff. Everyone probably have done the shell drill. One point I will make that hopefully can help you. It's helped us a lot, both offensively and defensively. A lot of players will hate the shell drill. It's just like sprinting to a spot. How many girls hate the shell drill? Okay, maybe. They're coaches here. They hate the shell drill because there's nothing to it. You're just sprinting to a spot. You just got to get to your spot, right? So what we add is an awareness element. So if the ball's here, and this player over here is doing this, what should this player do in a game? Just cut. So we allow our players in the shell drill, whenever your defender is not looking at you, cut. And when they cut and the offense throws it and they score or they just get a paint touch, I'll have some choice words, and then we'll restart. okay? But it's instant accountability and it's instant demand of perfection, and the players on defense can never just like, I just got to get through this drill. They have to be aware, because at any moment their opponent could cut and now they've just jerked up the whole drill for their team. So adding that to your shell drill, I highly recommend. And then the last build-up phase of this would be about rotations. We'll have a player drive. We'll work on our help rotations, our X-outs, or things like that. Okay? Maybe I'll talk about that when we talk about the scheme. But this is a basic drill. And again, I'm really focused on our closeout technique, our beating the ball, and our activity of our awareness. I'm going to touch on some of my favorite defensive team drills. And then the last thing I'll do is go over how I put my scheme together defensively. One of my favorite team drills is cutthroat. Brett Brown did the best clinic on cutthroat that I've ever seen here in Australia in 2012. It was one of the first defensive clinics I had ever watched as a coach, and it completely, I mean, I've been doing it ever since. All right, and so these 4 girls on the baseline would come to half court, just come to demo the drill. And I've been hearing a lot of coaches come up to me afterwards. You know, you don't always have 12 players at practice, maybe even on your team. You can do this 3-on-3. And a lot of the concepts I'm about to talk about, you can do just in your regular half-court defensive series, okay? So cutthroat, though, just for those of you who don't, and for a more extensive version of it, I recommend watching that clinic. Again, Brett Brown, cutthroat. Basically, the girls on defense are guarding. The offense has a little bit of constraint based on us. So right now, we might just be working on pass and cut. So offense, all you can do is pass and cut. And again, we're focused on certain techniques like jumping to the ball, not getting face cut, things like that that we've repped out in our shell drill. If the defense gets a stop, gets a steal or forces a miss, and get the rebound, grab it. Okay, they'll outlet it back to me. The team who didn't score is off, sidelines, and then this new group is sprinting on. And I'm throwing it to one of them, or they're cutting through and I'm filling it to the next one. And now it's almost like simulating small-sided transition, where these girls just got to stop and now have to organize the players coming in. Okay, so you get a little bit of that. The communication is excellent usually in this drill. The players love it. You get 7 points you get 7 stops, you win the game. Okay? If you score, how many points do you get? 0. You get the chance to go on defense, the privilege to be on defense. If you get scored on, you're off. New group's coming on, always on offense. I don't know about you guys if you've ever done this. Every team I've done this is always like, can we do cutthroat? They love it. It brings so much energy and competitiveness. 7 stops is a hell of a lot. And if they get scored on, they keep their score. Let's say they had 4 stops. They finally score, they're off, but they still have 4 stops. So when they get back on defense, they can still get to 7. Why do I love this drill? Besides what I just said about energy and competitiveness and stuff, we can control it. So now next series, this team wins. Now offense, we can pass and we can screen away. Now offense, when we come on, we have to go right into a ball screen. Now offense, we have to feed the post. So we can control what we want to see defensively, whether we're working on different segments. But one of the things I do is I add a reset criteria. So we hate offensive rebounds. So if blue shoots the ball and gets their own offensive rebound and puts it back up, and even if they miss, they reset the defense to 0 points. Okay? And you'll see guys want to tear each other's heads off when they give up. They got 6 stops. We've been going for 15 minutes. They finally got 6 stops, and their teammate gives up an offensive rebound. Ooh, that's some peer pressure. That's some player accountability instead of us just always getting on our players about boxing out. Other reset criteria I add are scattering report kind of things. So to start this drill, let's say every team designate a shooter, one shooter. And so this team might pick this player as their shooter. This team might pick this player as their shooter. This team might pick this player. And now, if that shooter hits a catch-and-shoot shot, what happens to the defensive score? 0. And our players love yelling, 0, when that team's getting off. It's really motivating. And it really instantly builds their communication. Because even this player over here, as that ball's moving around, as this team's coming on, and they see a shooter wide open, they're either getting there or they're reminding their teammate, watch shooter, because they don't want to lose the drill. We do the same thing with driver. Every team pick a driver. If that player drives into the paint and score, reset 0. So now when the driver catches it, guess what happens? Now they have a little more help every time, whether it's the midline or the gap. We also add target players. Target player for us is a star player. So every time this star player catches it, if she so happens to score at all, you get reset to 0. So what does that do? Now the whole team is scrunched up, all focused on making sure we limit number 7 here. And that's important in games. You'll have star players take over, and you need to adjust. And maybe you can't just rely on going to zone all the time. You need your man to have adjustments too, and you need your players to understand, this player is a star player. How do we adjust? This player is a shooter. This player is a driver. We need to practice that in practice, and this is a great drill to, I think, embed some of those concepts. Okay, thank you, girls. I want to talk about the scheme now. And this is one of my favorite topics, and we only have a little bit of time because I want to leave time for questions. But girls, can you give these girls a round of applause? You girls can have a seat. Have a seat. I need 2 girls to stay out, though, on the wing. Sure. And I need 2 players to stay in the post. Okay. I talked at the very beginning about how at least I hope, I'm a self-aware person. I have never, after a game, especially one that we lost, said it's the player's fault. I will always blame myself to a fault, even when other coaches might want to tell me it's not. I always take it right on the chin, because I never want to be at the will of what I'm given I want to take responsibility, and that starts by making sure the players are always in position to succeed. Have I done that? Especially on the defensive end. We work on individual skills defensively, but have I, as a coach, put them in the position to succeed? That's what I'm always racking my mind on. And that comes to the scheme, because I believe even the best defender in a bad scheme won't look like the best defender. But a great defender in a great scheme, now that's an all-defensive player. A poor player in a good scheme, now that's an average player. Okay, so the first example I ever heard talk about this was Dick Bennett. He said he just needed to decide how he wanted to guard the post. Post up? Actually, blue post up. Once he made his decision on how to guard the post, that would tell him everything else that he would need to know. And so his decision was to guard the post 3/4 top side. Okay? And he thought to himself, all right, if that's how I want to guard the post, what is the weakness in that coverage? So we step aside there, 3/4 tonight. The obvious weakness is the baseline feed. Okay? We don't want to just leave our defensive post player out to dry by easy post entries all the time, going one-on-one from right down there. The second thing, which you see a lot more in today's game, is this player drives at baseline, and maybe she seals out the help, which is usually illegal, but some refs decide to piss me off instead. Or she'll like eye cut or circle cut, and now she's getting layups. So it has the chance to really hinder the baseline drive, help rotation, or any help whatsoever. So what does that tell us about how to guard the ball? Well, that would tell us that we should take away the baseline shoulder, take away the baseline drive. because now she's applying more heat to the baseline entry feed, and she's taken away the baseline drive, which we already talked about has harder help. So now these players are working in tandem, working together. They're helping each other maximize the most, right? Because she's not allowing easy post entries to the baseline, and she's not allowing any to the top side. And if she gets beat middle, at least we have some help at the rim. Similarly, if we want to take away middle, then we don't really want to leave this person out to dry. And so we need to change how we guard the posts. And we can guard the post a couple ways, right? We can guard behind the post, which, is pretty bad usually. We can guard low side, which has its severe disadvantages, obviously. Some teams do it, Baylor University, one of them, and they're one of the best defensive teams, so it has worked. Or you can front, which is usually the option for most teams that take away middle, right? Why front? Go in front, yeah. Because in a no middle defense, there's a lot more emphasis on the split line. And so you organically have a backside helper already in your defense. Whereas teams that take away baseline, right, usually they don't have to worry about the baseline help rotation. So the split line isn't as much of a priority. They need to worry about the quick rotation, which is why a no baseline team usually plays more farther out. So that low man's not organically there. Let's talk about the gap too, because he said that one decision would tell him everything else. So now, let's say we are 3/4 denying on the post, and we want to get to that baseline shoulder. So how should we guard in the gap? And we know a lot of today's game is dribble penetration. So come to the gap. If she was in denial with a hand up and a little higher in the gap, we know that if she can't deny this pass and it gets through, then she's closing out to that top shoulder, automatically giving up that baseline rip or post entry at baseline. So her gap position is going to also impact her ball position. And if we're telling our players, take away the middle or take away the baseline, but we want to be a denial team too, they're going to be constantly out of position. Now, if we want to get to the baseline shoulder, that's how the pack line was invented. Now she has to sag her gap a little bit, maybe not too much, And now on the pass, she has a better chance of getting to the low side and taking away the baseline. Okay? The same thing is true for off-ball coverages and pick and roll coverages. Let's have both tandem switch. Post players come to the wing, guards go to the block. Let's imagine we're going to set a pin down screen for our teammate, okay? Again, how we guard off the ball is going to impact how we guard on the ball. So let's say we're a team that wants to lock and chase her, right? Stay attached to her as she comes out to the wing. You stay attached to the post player. Freeze right there, freeze right there. Okay, stay on her. Yep, okay, who's on defense? Good. So trail her a little bit as she comes off. So on the catch, freeze. Because she's trailing her, she's going to automatically be a better position to take away this baseline shoulder, right? But if she's trailing her and then on the catch trying to take away the middle, she'll either get beat with a quick rip, or this counter movement of overextending herself is going to leave her dry on the baseline. Let's go back to the pin down. Let's say we want to give space and shoot the gap. So 56, as she pins down, come up towards the ball a little bit, stay in line though, and then shoot in between those two players. No, in between those two players, give her enough space. Okay, good. And now she's coming out to deny almost. She split the gap, she's closer to the ball. So now on the catch, she can take away the middle, right? Because she's split the gap, shot the gap, and she's in position to take away middle. And again, she was disengaged from the post to give space, which means she can recover easily to front. So how things fit together. The last thing I'll say, and we won't talk too much about pick and roll, we only got a couple minutes left. I don't want to tell you it's all or nothing, because some people have taken that from my previous talks. But it is very helpful. Right? It is helpful to guard cross screens so that your players are always in position The guard staggers so that the player on ball and off ball are in position. So things we think about all the time. But there are situations, guard the ball, where, for example, our team this year, who I've spoken about, was very good defensively. Yes, our base coverage was to front the post. And we were a no-middle team. But here's the honest truth. A lot of the teams we were playing, especially in the early part of the year, didn't have good post players. Okay? We probably played 5 good post players in our 30 games this year. So, for me, constantly working on our front, constantly having 2 players kind of guard a player that wasn't very good, didn't make a lot of sense. And I'm not a believer on the low side. I know some teams, like I mentioned, have gotten away with it and used it. It just, and behind just inviting the post player, not my goal either, okay? So we did 3/4 the high side, even though I just spent the last 6 minutes telling you why not to. The reason we did it, because on these post entry passes, who is this player? A player we didn't think could beat us. So we trusted our one-on-one defense in the post a lot more than their one-on-one offense. So we were okay with it getting there. But you're saying, Coach, doesn't that bite you in the ass when you get to the good post players? Yeah, it probably does, okay? It probably does, but it allowed our help to be more active. And the last thing I'll say, we never wanted the post player, but when we were going against a great post player, we were 3/4, now they're just, we didn't do that either. We had to adjust to the flaw in our system. We knew it was a flaw. We knew the post player could get the ball anytime they wanted. So how did we adjust our flaw in our scheme? We had our low man, obviously, and every time that ball was passed there, we arrived on the catch into a trap. So that if this player quick spinned, it would be a charge. Also, we stayed on the high side. Why? With our big post player, we stayed on the high side so she couldn't see the other side of the floor. The only thing we didn't pop back behind. We stayed here as the trap was coming. So now she had to go baseline, or she had to pass it back to this side, which, getting the ball out of the hands of a great post player, kind of what you want. So there will be some times you have flaws in your defensive system. For me, it's not a weakness unless it's being exploited by your opponent, okay? So don't rack your head about a weakness that's never going to be exploited. But be prepared when it does get exploited. And how are you going to adjust to the perhaps unideal technique you've instilled, but now can we add an adjustment to take advantage of that? Same thing if we were setting like a back screen into a ball screen. If we want this player guarding the post player who's setting the back screen to sag and protect the rim, and then she sprints all the way into a pick and roll and we want to hedge, that's going to be impossible. She's going to be out of position, late to the hedge. Now we're fouling. Now we're not getting in a trap. So you have to make sure your off-ball coverages fit your pick and roll coverage too, because a good coach will exploit you. Okay? Do we have any questions for the last 2 minutes and 30 seconds? Can be about anything we've covered or anything defensively in the world. Yeah?
Yeah, with kids these days, big focus on offense. They all want to play offense. Do you have a formula or something that to coach? Do you coach with a formula for kids to get their attitude correct for defense, or how do you raise their attitude?
We could spend probably 60 minutes on motivation, right? I'll tell you a quick couple snippets, hopefully to change the mindset of players that I tell our players. A lot of times, honestly, it's the consequences, and I know we've gotten a little bit away from that as educators, as parents, as coaches, but consequences still get results, okay? So there needs to be a consequence. If she can't guard the ball, she can't be on the floor. Okay, the bench is the best motivator. And again, we can't just sideline a player because of their deficiencies. We have to work on it. But to the motivation point, we show film after film after film. I have a whole library of great players talking about the importance of defense. So hopefully that tells them that defense is important. If some of the role models they were looking at believe in it, then maybe they should care about it too. As coaches, I will stop the flow of practice. I will show highlights of our defensive plays, okay? The guys will sit through a whole film room, and then we'll have the top 10 defensive plays of the game, just so they know that great defense gets rewarded. And also, I stop it and praise and point out defensive things that might have not been spectacular. Johnny, you were in help side. Freeze, everyone freeze. Lucas was wide open on the back cut. Why didn't you throw it? Johnny was in help. Johnny saved us for a leg. So it's like pointing out those for things that another coach they don't even mention, right? So now they're aware, the coach is focused on everything. Some last things, and these are more corny. I'll ask the players, and I ask these players themselves, how many minutes did you play last game? 20 minutes, whatever. How many shots did you get up? 10. How long does it take you to shoot a shot? A second. So in 20 minutes, you spent how many times shooting the ball? 10 seconds. How many times did you dribble the ball? Spent 2 minutes dribbling. So in 20 minutes, you spent 10 seconds shooting the ball, 2 minutes dribbling. How many minutes did you spend on defense? Half your minutes. Are you prepared to make the most of those minutes? Because the great players impact both ends of the floor, because that's the only way to win. And the last thing I'll leave you with, the fans, there's no chant for offense. No one says offense. Yeah, you might get some ooh and ahs from the crowd with a great offensive move. But the crowd chants for defense. Okay, and I'll tell the players that, and when the crowd is chanting for defense, you better be able to deliver, because that's what they really want, guys and girls who could defend.